Okay, thanks for joining us, everyone, for the Resilience Movement podcast. Again, I've got Nathan Hawken here, all the way from Dublin, joining us. And also, this is number 2 of our 5-part series. And this one is the importance of seeking help when you need it. So, thank you again, Nathan, for joining me.
Donna, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I love these chats. I love them.
And our listeners are already downloading. We've got lots of people downloading it, and in fact lots of people downloading in different parts of the world, which is super exciting because when people are listening to you in France and the UK and of course where you are. And thank you for sharing the last episode, because I think people are really getting a lot from that. So I hope they're joining into this one as well once we pop this up tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay,
awesome.
so
We've got to remember, like, no matter where we are in the world, we're still human beings, right? We're all struggling with the same problems essentially underneath it all. Doesn't matter what country we're in. Beautiful thing is that we can reach more people when we're doing something like this online. So kudos to you, young lady, for actually putting this stuff out there and creating this, because you're doing
thank
really
you.
well.
It's very exciting stuff, and I get a lot from feeling like I'm contributing something. So the fact that I can get amazing coaches like yourself on to also contribute is, I'm very grateful for that. So let's get started. The importance of seeking help when you need it.
Yeah, yeah. So the way I like to look at things, or the way I wanted this to come out, was because I notice a lot of the time with the people I work with or people I just have general conversations with is that people are struggling in some way. Like I said a second ago, like no matter where you are in the world, people are going to be struggling with the same type of problems at the surface level, and even underneath, there's going to be some beliefs or some things which drive the way they're behaving or when they're doing things which aren't serving them. But there's going to become times where there's struggle, where there's challenges, where they need some type of help. Problem is, a lot of people struggle to actually take that step and ask for the help in whatever situation where it is. I know we were briefly talking about it before, and like, well, what type of context? Because it depends on what your situation is, but I didn't want to minimalize it to one particular field where we're talking about either mental health or coaching or business or something like that, because no matter where you are or what you're doing, the time will come where you can't do it yourself, and even though, yes, you can look inside yourself and you've got all the answers there, if you're trying to create something or you want more for yourself or you've got a challenge there, you're going to need some type of help, whether that help is finding a program online to do it, whether it's speaking to someone. But the big challenge really is actually taking that step to put your hand up and say, you know what, I need help. I need something right now. And that's, I think, is like one of the hardest things for people to do, is just raise their hand to say, yeah, I need something. I don't have it all right now and I need some type of help.
Yeah, look, totally agree. And what has just come up for me is back in 2017, and I can tell you it was November 2017. I had that foggy feeling like I just couldn't see the forest for the trees. I was overwhelmed. I had a personal thing going on, but I was running my business and I just wasn't able to cope. And I had to reach out, and I think, looking back, I could have reached out sooner, but I'm that independent person who goes, I can get through this, I can push through. And I remember it was just the hustle, and not being able to do it. And I tell you, when I did reach out to the right person, I was obviously, I had a chat with someone, a professional, and got some help. And it was the best thing I ever did. And he did some EMDR therapy with me, which they actually do with soldiers who are suffering from PTSD. And it
Yeah.
was so effective, 6 sessions of this. And I was like, I was not great, but I certainly could function better because I reached out and got help.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's recognize within yourself where you are going to be struggling. But like, because it is that first step. It's funny you say the word hustle, because there's a lot of hype out there. It's like, you got to hustle, right? You got to hustle, hustle, hustle. Like, lose sleep, stay up late, do the hustle, do what you need to do. See, I'm actually against that. I don't really agree with that philosophy, because you start to neglect yourself when you're doing things like that, because you can't just keep burning and burning and burning. At some stage, that you're going to need the help. But if you're living in that type of mentality, that help can be something like, well, I need help looking after myself, because it's all well and good if I'm hustling and building my business and I'm making money. That's awesome. But are you happy? Is that money actually increasing to the way you live your life, or are you living in a very frivolous type of way, which isn't serving you, or it's actually detrimental to your own health or your own mindset or something like that? So the help could be very different. I think a lot of the times we think of help, it's like, yeah, I'm feeling down right now, so I need to speak to a counselor or something like that. But no, sometimes the help is at a different level. It's a help that is almost out of the awareness right now, because you're too focused on something else. Do you know what I mean? And you're so focused on that one thing, like hustling and building a business and just putting in the hours there, that the relationships suffer, or your health is suffering. How you interact with the people in your family is suffering, or something like that. But that help can only come if you have to stop for a second and look around at what's happening and be like, right, I'm not happy in this part of my life, or I'm not happy here, and I need to do something about it. And forget, or I wouldn't say forget, but make it a higher priority to focus on that type of help, or focus on yourself. Because even if you kept like grinding and hustling and doing that thing, you build it to what you want it to build to, but then that's not going to be enough, because that's your focus all the time. And you might get there and realize that you're not in a good way mentally, and it might all come crumbling down because you didn't do the work, or you didn't put your hand up earlier to seek that type of help to begin with, right?
Yeah. And I think if I look back over the years where I was hustling in my business, there were different times where I had, a business coach, because I didn't know how to fix a particular problem. I was really good at A, B, and C, but I really didn't know how to do D and E. So, I sought help for that. So, and I'm sorry, you see my head down. I'm writing notes because like you're saying things that are triggering me.
You should be writing notes. I hope everyone who's listening is writing notes as well, because that's how we get that next layer of understanding and learning when it comes through.
Yeah. I just, there's so much that comes up. And I think when I introduce my podcast, I always say, grab a pen and paper, strap yourself in. There's good stuff.
I got a feeling you're doing this podcast as like just a way to get one-on-one training from the people that you're speaking to, right? It's like,
Ooh,
all right, I'll ask you a question. You just talk for the next half an hour, and I'm just going to sit here and take notes.
That's brilliant. That's
Yeah,
brilliant. You
genius.
just planted a seed. But I seriously do get so much from every person that I interview. Like, you're just giving so much to our listeners that I think it's awesome. And so if this is a resource for people to, seek help when they need it, I think that's an amazing opportunity we have.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because like I see a pattern in this type of thinking as well, because, and I can use my own example here as well. Like I was 30 when I started to learn what personal development was, because I was in that place where I wasn't happy, and I didn't realize that I needed help. Like, well, I knew I needed it, but I never actually put my hand up to do it properly, like at 100%. And I know between the ages of 20 and 30, I didn't really quite understand myself enough to realize that I wasn't in a good place, and so when I finally started to understand that, and this is the pattern, it's like, well, you come across something which makes you feel good, or gives you a little bit of a shift, which is maybe an audio, or you watch a video on YouTube, or someone recommends a personal development book, or it's like, hey, listen to this guy, Anthony Robbins, big teeth, massive personality type of guy. And you listen to him, you're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. I don't really understand it, but it makes sense. And so that almost activates something for you to seek something else. So it's not so much you putting your hand up straight away saying, oh, I need help. It's like, this is starting to help. And then the time comes from there. It's like, okay, so I've read more, I've listened to more, and then there gets to a stage where like, right, okay, so I've learned what I need to learn so far and to get past a couple of things, but I know there's big blockages here. And I notice this with people I have conversations with who may be a potential client, or I'm just having a general conversation with. They realize that there's a bigger blockage underneath it all, right? There's a bigger belief, or there's a bigger blockage underneath it all, which is manifesting in a different way. And that's the time when it's like crunch time. It's like, I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of personal development. Like I've spent 12 months or 2 years learning and developing. I'm a much better person now, but there's something else and I don't know what it is. And it's through that awareness where they can say, okay, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, which is not the best way to do it, because what got you here won't get you there. Or the time comes like, right, I need something else. Like it's either I can hire a coach now and help me get past it, or I can see a therapist if that's deemed necessary, or I can speak to a mentor or someone else, but I know I need something else. But it's that realization. And that only comes through realizing that there's something going on. If we start looking a little bit deeper into more, like if you're seeing like a counselor or a therapist or something like that, where someone's got a mental challenge which is really impacting them, like maybe it's a high level of anger or stress or anxiety or something like that, which is coming up, when a lot of the time, if they're on that path, that's the pattern and that's what they're used to. So they get to a stage where they're just angry all the time, or they're like being angry towards people for no reason or something like that. There's a lot of stress in their life, but because they're in that pattern, it can be hard to break that unless something breaks them out of it. It's like it's almost like a slap across the face, which makes them go, right, something's not good here. Maybe it's a rock bottom state, or something happens where it's like, right, now I need to do something about it. But then here's the trick. And we've spoken about this before in regards to taking responsibility. Do they want to take responsibility to change in a way that's going to work and it's going to help them for the rest of their life? Or do they want to kind of continue on and hopefully resolve itself? And I'm using inverted commas here, try to fix the problem, because we don't know what try means. Try means not doing. If you're doing, you're doing. If you're trying, you're just trying. And so that's sort of the pattern I've noticed. It's like a level of awareness needs to be raised to realize that, first of all, you can change. That you don't have to be stuck with what you've got at the moment, because all behavior is like conditioned in and it's just something that you've learned. And then that point has to come where it's like, well, is this the time now to do something about it? Like actually do something about it and change. Are things either bad enough to change, or do you want something bad enough that's going to make you want to change? And that's where the choice comes. And so you can either choose to do something about it and put your hand up and say, you know what, I need help, whatever that help may be, or you can just kind of let things progress and, we'll just see what happens and see if it resolves itself. And we'll see if I'm happy at 60, right? Or if I'm just really not happy at all.
Yeah. And I love what you said about what got you here won't get you there. That's a really good way to think about, well, how am I going to get to the next level? Because we have to, push ourselves. And over the years, I've done things that have pushed me, because, when you are running a company and people are under you and you're the motivator for everybody else, you've got to find things that push you to the next level. And, and they were why I did things like, I did the firewalk with Anthony Robbins, and I did Kokoda, because I needed to push myself. And it's like, if I can do that, then I can do this. But even in doing those things, like when I was doing the firewalk, we had people to help us elevate our thinking, our possibility thinking, that we could do this. And, when I was training for Kokoda, I sought help with a trainer. And then I sought help with someone who has already done it. So someone who's already been there, and, they taught me the simplest thing that was the most important thing. And that was, plodding, just being able to walk, not stopping, just keep walking. You can slow down, you keep plodding. And that was the one thing that was absolutely pivotal, in line with make sure you look after your feet at nighttime, because you're going to need them the next day.
Yeah, that's right. Just to clarify though, that what I said in regards to what got you here won't get you there, I'm reading The Prosperous Coach at the moment. I actually read it about 6 or 7 times recently.
I've just downloaded it.
Yeah. So I've got it on Audible. And I've got the physical book as well. But Rich Lipton said that, and it just made perfect sense, because it's got me thinking about what I need to do next as well. But what you said is right. It's like, well, I want to do something. I know I need help to do it. It actually reminds me of David Goggins as well. I think we spoke about him. He's just like that hardcore American soldier. And he ran like 100-mile marathon with no training. He did like a massive leg weight training beforehand. Like, so his legs were like just in pain.
Oh my goodness.
I think he was running on broken legs or something at the time, or his feet were a mess. He kept doing it, but like that was his first big marathon that he did. And he said, look, the next thing that he's going to do after that is train and like learn about marathons first. And so what you said about like plodding along and just make sure you just keep walking, those are the things that you put your hand up. They may seem insignificant at the time, but if you're looking to achieve something, then these are the things you have to kind of put your hand up and say, yeah, actually, I need help with that, right? I need help because I want to get there and I've got no idea how to do it. I'm sure my willpower could make me get there. But if the willpower is not strong enough, I need to make sure I've got some steps along the way to make it happen as well.
And that's interesting, because one thing I know for sure is one thing that is probably more important or as important as your fitness when you're doing something like that is your mental capacity. Like,
That's everything.
yeah. And I think that's like, in business, in anything that you're doing, like if you, was it Henry Ford who said, if you think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah. Whether
And
you
and
think you
that's
can
what,
or you think you can't, you're right.
yeah. So, seeking help when you need it, I think an important point to that is seeking help from the right people. And many times people have said, if you're going to find an accountant, if your accountant's driving a beat up car because he can't afford a good one, should he be your accountant?
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. Um, what's really interesting with that is it's like, you need to get this type of help, but it's finding, not just finding the right help, but in regards, there's a lot of noise out there about the people that you could possibly contact, or there's a lot of things that you could go to, and it can become
Mm.
quite overwhelming to decide who you want help from.
Yeah.
And this is something like I've also learned myself. It's like there is so many people out there in personal development, personal trainers, nutritional coaches, therapists, things like that. And everyone will tell you that either they're great or they know someone who's good. And that can become overwhelming in itself, because it's like, well, who do I actually choose? And this is
Mm.
where we're going to go back to someone's intuition as well. It's like, well, what you have to think about is who resonates with you the most? Who does it feel good to go and speak to? Like, who is someone that, you know what, this person actually makes sense. It feels like the right thing to do, despite what anyone else says, right?
Mm.
Despite what anyone else says. I had a client say that recently, because I found out he spoke to three other coaches first before he agreed to work with me. And I asked him about it because I'm very curious about why someone would want to choose to work with me. And he said, look, out of everyone I spoke to, I just felt like they weren't listening and they were just focusing on themselves. Right. And I said, okay, well,
Yeah.
that's nice. But it's true, because you will speak to a lot of different people. There's a lot of help that you can get out there. And people may go towards someone just because they're told that they need to go to this person for some reason. But if it doesn't feel right, then it's not going to work, because
Mm.
that you need to have kind of that, not rapport, but it needs to feel like the right thing to do. And I say that to anyone who wants to work with me for coaching. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Right.
Yeah.
If this doesn't feel like a good fit, don't do it. And same with me. If it doesn't feel like I can help you, or if it doesn't feel good for me, then I will say no as well, because they're probably not going to work out to be a good client, or they're probably not going to get what they want, or I might not get what I want from it as well. Right.
Mm.
So we have to really be in tune with our own intuition to actually realize that, okay, so it's not about what everyone tells us. It's not about all the things that I'm watching. It's about what feels most aligned with me. And that's where the proper help will come, because if it feels like it's in alignment with you, it's probably the right thing to do. And you've got to
Mm.
just kind of jump into that process as well, but realize that when that person comes, they're there for a particular reason. And if you feel it, it's a good idea to kind of jump into it and go do what you need to do. Once you're at that stage where you realize, yeah, I need a little bit of help, and I believe this person can help me.
Yeah, and when that client said to you, you were listening to me, like a person feeling heard feels valued,
Yeah.
and so, and I know over the years when I've picked particular people, like how I picked an accountant or a solicitor when I got into business was very different. And then I picked numerous times I've picked a personal trainer. Now I'm a strong-minded person, I don't need a personal trainer who's maybe going to be hard on me. I need a personal trainer who's going to, like no BS,
Yeah.
because I can make excuses and I'm not going to work myself as hard as you're going to work me. And
Yep.
that's the same for me in coaching. I don't want someone who is, going to listen to my BS. I want someone who's going to call me out.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's not about that. Like that's because totally against the whole relationship of having a coach, right? You need someone that's
Yeah.
going to call you out and push you. And it's funny you said it. So like I'm part of a coaches group on Facebook, and that's kind of my avenue to kind of give value, because there's a lot of new coaches out there that I just like to give value. I've got no expectation, or I'm not trying to find clients as a result. I just want to help as much as I can. But you notice the people who are coming from their own agenda. So everyone's got their own agenda, no matter what we're doing, right? You've got an agenda for what you're doing here. I've got my own agenda for wanting to be on it. And everyone's got their own agenda. And you know when someone's got an agenda where it's specifically just to sell you something or enroll you into their coaching just because they're looking for a client. And I see that a lot because someone will put up a genuine question in there. So someone's seeking help, a new coach saying, hey, I've just started, I've finished my coaching certificate. I don't know what to do next, or I've been working on a website, I'm not getting anything, I need some help. And in the comments, you'll see the people saying, oh, PM me, or I'm sending you a message now, or we should talk. And you can tell they're the ones who are coming from scarcity, or they're just trying to find a new client because there's no value in it. They're just like, oh yeah, here's my business card. Here's my business card. Let's talk. I want to bring you in as a client. But the ones who are genuine are the ones like, right, here's some practical things that you can do without any outcome whatsoever. But that's the help. And you'll notice that. And it's quite funny because that client I was telling you about a second ago, his wife is a coach and she's part of that particular group. And she saw some of the comments I was leaving. And so she connected us together to talk. And obviously it turned into which is great. But the point is that when someone needs help, when you resonate with someone that's generally giving back to you or has something that it just feels like the right thing, then that's what you need to go for. And because everyone does have their own agenda, and being able to determine who's just coming from a place of just wanting to give you, like sell you something, or has their own agenda before yours, like before trying to help you, then that's not going to be fit. And you'll be able to feel it. But a lot of people, they may feel it, but they're like, oh, but it seems like they're really good, so I'll just go with them anyway. And they stop listening to themselves, right? Journey back is
and the thing too is like we do have our own agendas, and that's okay. But you know, both you and I, you know, we do have an agenda to serve. We do have an agenda to contribute. So there's an alignment there, you know, and I've had plenty of different partnerships, and you know, when you look back, it's like, oh, that's why they wanted to work with me, because I'm a go-getter and I get things done, and I've got the big vision, and they don't, and you realize after a while that you're doing all the work, and they're hoping the rewards are coming soon, you know. So yeah, I agree. If you don't feel aligned with someone, then maybe they're not the right person for you to seek help or whatever you need from them. So so why do you think, well, I want to talk about men and women. What do you think the difference is between men and women seeking help?
Wow, that's a complex question. And so
that's why I asked them.
Yeah, good. I love it. So I believe that the reason people, like a male or female, it doesn't matter who it is, it doesn't matter what race, religion, or anything, the reason someone wouldn't seek help or does seek help is because of a particular belief within inside themselves. Now, a lot of the time would be like something like, I'm not worthy, I don't believe I can do it, or maybe I believe I can do it all, which is a limiting belief as well, because obviously we can't all do it. We can't do it all ourselves. Yeah. But I believe, look, beliefs are such a driving force in everything that we do. Like I said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But these are the unconscious beliefs which are under the surface. And so I think one of the biggest beliefs for men in particular, I obviously can't speak for women, but I can speak for men. And I was fortunate enough to not have like an alpha male type of father. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my dad was really like nice, genuine, down to earth, good guy. And so he never installed like an alpha male type of behavior. But there's a lot of guys I speak to in particular, and it's funny, I'm having messages with an Italian guy at the moment. He's also a coach. Few beliefs he's got around money, but like one of the things he said was about being a man, right? And he's talking about, you know, being a man. And I think that's a big belief. It's like a lot of guys in particular are taught that we have to be a man, right? First of all, what the hell does that mean? Right? What's being a man? But if we go back to the older kind of barbaric type of thinking, it's like being a man is being strong, dominant, you know, taking charge, and all can be good things. But if you feel like you're not living up to that, or that's not part of your character as a young boy growing into a young man and turning into a man, then that belief that you're not a man or you're not being a man can really have some detrimental effects. Or, and this is something I worked with when I was back in Australia, was there was a client who thought he needed coaching, signed on for 6 months worth of coaching, and we canceled it a couple of weeks afterwards because he just wasn't ready to dig down deep enough. And the reason for that was because as a man, you don't do that. You know, his father left when he was quite young. So he had to be the man, the man of the house now. And so as a result of that, he shut off all of his emotions, kept everything to himself, was in like serious debt. Like I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, totally kept that from his wife. So she had no idea, and struggling in his business and all these things were because he has to be a man and has to deal with things himself. Right. And he's really struggled to get to a point where he's like, I need help. So he's kind of getting there saying, look, I need coaching. I need some type of help. Didn't work out because he wasn't willing to do the work. But in answer to your question, I think that's one of the main reasons is because look, beliefs are driving people. Beliefs for a man could be like, I'm not a man, or it's not manly to talk about your emotions or deal with your emotions, or even admit and be vulnerable that you need help, because as a man, we just figure it out, particularly to a point where you start talking about deep emotional things, like particularly sadnesses and hurt and fear in particular. Like it's not manly to talk about your fears, is it? Not at all. So you just kind of keep those to yourself. And it boils out into not seeking the help that you need, or it boils over into not getting the things that you want. Or if you are getting the things that you want, are you happy at the core? Because it's a two-edged sword. A lot of guys, like, men build this, or men create this, or they have to become successful. That's great. To become successful, are you happy? Is there that happiness underneath it all? Are you good in your relationships, or are you someone who's not good towards your partner or good towards your family? Because we've heard a lot of stories about that in our lives, haven't we? And so I think we've started talking about the male and female. I think that's a big aspect of it. Like the beliefs are always going to be driving everything that anyone does. When on the male side, it can be absolutely about like being the man and like really just squashing down those feelings.
Yeah. And, I can only speak from, the perspective. I have a son, and, he's got to be very brave and stoic and not cry and not feel his emotions. But that's actually partially led him to addiction, because he wants to bury those emotions instead of allow them to come up. So, we'll just suppress them in any way he sees fit. And he doesn't mind me talking about this either. I have his total permission to talk about this as much as I need to, because it can then help other people go like, am I suppressing my emotions? Am I suppressing my ability to be my best self? I think is one of the, the biggest things today is like, what's happening. And I have clients who, one of my clients last week was talking about playing out, even in his career, he's turned the volume on himself down to a 2, where he wants to be an 8 or a 10.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're allowed to turn the volume up. You can be your true self, be your best self, and that's a little scary for him, because he's like, well, people might not like me. So it's about being liked, and all of this stems from you not being okay with yourself, or you not feeling like you're enough.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm going to share something that I don't think I've ever shared it on like any of my lives or anything, but like between the ages of say probably 19 to about 25. So I used to like go out and party a lot, and I took my fair share of drugs and things like that, because I didn't realize it at the time, but I've spent a lot of time kind of reflecting on that part of my life and why I was doing it. And I think at the time I justified it because like I was having fun, I was having weekends where I was sleepless, like because I was just wide awake and wired for a lot of the time. And then I was working 2 jobs. I was working 7 days a week in hospitality and working on the weekend and still partying and doing this. And then I traveled overseas because I wanted to go to like the big super clubs over in like UK and things like that. And so I did my fair share of partying in a very, very unhealthy way. But in reflection upon that, I know at the time I didn't know who I was. I know I was suppressing a lot of who I was as well. I didn't recognize my emotions at all. I was very enclosed, very insecure. I know I was like my parents' relationship, not that I'll get into it now, but like there was a lot of stuff there which I wasn't processing. And I know at the time that like the drugs and things like that was suppressing all of it. It wasn't until I met my wife and I had more in my life to live for now that I started to make those changes. So I met her when I was 22, actually, when I traveled over to Ireland, and she's Irish. So we've been together for a long time now. So the first few years was like us getting to know each other. But then over a period of time, particularly when we came back to Australia, I was like, right, I have a wife now. And so I had to start to shift because like it took some time, but I had to start thinking about, well, it's not just me anymore. I can't keep doing those type of things. And so it just naturally started me to want to change. And that's when 30 hit, and that was my moment where it was like the breakthrough moment where it's like, right, now I can actually do something about it. And ever since then, even to this day, like I don't even enjoy drinking anymore. Like I was never a big drinker
Yeah.
in general, but even now, like having maybe a beer or maybe a glass of wine, even for me is too much. Like we had my son's christening on Saturday just gone, and had a couple of beers, but like I don't enjoy it anymore. And the reason for that now is because my priorities have totally shifted. I don't enjoy how I feel, but underneath it all, I'm actually pretty comfortable and happy with who I am. I don't feel like I need to suppress that anymore. Like I don't enjoy going to a pub anymore. I'm in Ireland, right? We've got
Yeah.
Guinness here everywhere. It's amazing, but I don't even enjoy going to the pub anymore because for me, it feels like a place of suppression of a
Mm.
person. Whether that may be the case for some people, may not, but that was the case for me, and that's how I associate it now. And so I don't even feel like doing that anymore. I don't even feel like having a drink or two every that much at all. Like maybe once every 2 weeks, if that, because I don't
Yeah.
like how it feels anymore. But I'm comfortable enough to realize that like this is me. I don't need to suppress anything. If anything, I want to bring it to the surface so I can feel it and let it go and progress and get better and better.
Mm. Which I think comes down to, having that awareness and, knowing that there is a better way. And so when it comes to, people seeking help, where do you think that awareness starts to bubble up? When people start to go, something's not right here, but I don't know what it is. Maybe I should ask more questions or seek help or whatever. Where do you think that awareness can start for someone?
Um, it's going back to intuition. I think you just said it best then. It's that moment when they say, something's not right,
Mm,
whatever that is. If you start to feel that, like, first of all, I think when you hit that stage where you notice, like, something's not right, you've already noticed that beforehand, right?
mm,
You already feel it. Maybe you've done something and acted in a particular way. You're like, right, that doesn't feel good doing that. There's something going on there. Maybe I just sort of really ripped into someone for no reason. Like, oh, that wasn't a good thing, that. And so I think that awareness comes then, and it's recognizing it at the time. But there's also the moment where you've got to give yourself a break and realize that you'll come to it in your own time. But if you notice it in advance, you're like, you know what, something's not right. I think that's the moment just to say, I need to do something about it. And it doesn't have to be anything drastic, right? It doesn't
mm,
have to be like, right, I'm just going to invest 100 grand into the best therapist in the world to work out what's going inside my head. No, it doesn't work like that, because that's coming from a place of like scarcity as well. It's like, I've got to sort this out right now. And
yeah.
if you're trying to do it too quickly, then it's not going to work, because you just want to get it done quickly. You don't want to do the work that needs to get done in order for you to do what needs to be done, as in
Mm,
like release, need to release. And so I think when that time comes, it's just doing one thing about it. And that could be finding your best friend and saying, look, this is how I'm feeling, and something's not working for me right now, and I need to get some help. What do you think I should do? Or speaking to a family member, or even just calling up a coach, or someone that you can resonate with, or maybe someone you've been following online, sending them a message just to see what comes back. But it's doing something about it. Just
mm,
one small little action to just put out there and recognize within yourself that there is something not working. So you can start the process of seeking out the right help, and the right help will always come to you at the right time. I'm a firm believer of the right people will come into your life when you need it most, because there's a mutual gain from each of you. They will drop off naturally, or they will stay with you for your life. But there's something to be gained from the person that you're speaking with. Like us now, I spoke to you a couple of years ago when we were in Canberra. I think the very first time I spoke to you was trying to sell Bartercard to you many years ago when I called you up. A long,
oh my gosh. Yes.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I wasn't quite sure if that had clicked yet. But
No, it had not.
yeah,
That's
yeah. So
funny.
think about that, because we had a couple of conversations back then. So
Yeah.
that was the first interaction we had, and then I think a couple of years ago we spoke about NLP and a few things on Facebook, and then there was
Yep.
nothing, and now here we are, right? So there's a mutual gain coming out of this, and so I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer that the right people will come into your life at the right time, the right information will come into your life at the right time, and what I mean by that is someone will suggest a book, and it might be random, but if someone suggests a book, it's a good idea to kind of explore that. Maybe not so much like a romance novel or something like that, but when it's a genuine book which is going to help. Like if someone says, "Oh, you should check out this book. I'm reading it." It's like, "Oh, maybe I will." All right, and just go with it. And even things like if you've got a bookshelf with like personal development books and things like that, instead of like choosing your book and reading it all the way through, just wake up one day or whenever you feel like you're going to sit down and read, and just reach for the first book that's there and open it up on whatever page and read what's on that page. And I guarantee you that what's on that page is going to be the exact information that you need, because information that people come into your life at the right time and when you need it most.
Yeah. And it's funny you say this. I just want to share a really interesting story about opening a book to a page. And so a number of years ago, I can't remember exactly how many years ago, and my grandfather will forgive me for this. My grandfather was, my grandmother had passed away 5 years prior, and my grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, and he was going to pass away. He was already hit 90. Anyway, I'm not a very religious person. I'm very spiritual, but I don't go to church, and but I always have had a Bible for whatever reason. But I have a dear friend who was very religious, and I remember ringing him up because my grandfather was passing away and I didn't want him to suffer. And I asked him, was it okay to pray for someone to pass? He's had a good life. I don't want him to suffer. And that night, that afternoon, he was being transferred out to palliative care to where my Nana had passed away. And he just wanted to be with Nan. And Jordan said, yeah, I've never had anyone ask me that question before, but of course it's okay to ask for someone to pass. And he said, Donna, have you got a Bible there? And I said, yeah, I do. And anyway, I got the Bible. I opened it up. I simply just opened it up randomly. He said, I want you to go to this prayer, and it's in blah 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 on page blah blah blah. I was at that page.
Wow. Yeah.
And you know, like it was just, and my grandfather passed away the next morning at 7 a.m.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it was just incredible. And so I've always listened to books, like, you know, you've told me about books, and anyone who's told me about books, I have always looked them up and seen if I resonate with them. I don't read novels. I don't read romance books or anything like that. I only read, you know, biographies or personal development, and I get a lot from that. And one of the things I do is when I hear someone talking about a struggle that they're having, or something that they want to, you know, increase their awareness about, I always can think of a book and go, now, if you can't buy that right now, I'm more than happy to loan it to you. And I've always loaned out books. And, you know, so whenever someone needs a book, you've got to know someone else, or go to a library or use Audible or whatever, you know, you do. And I think that that is a place where we can seek help, is there's a book, someone has done something or overcome something that we're going through, or someone has been successful in something and written about it. And so there's always going to be a book for whatever the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of going back to what we're saying about overwhelm, because there is so much out there as well. And so being in tune with your own intuition really helps with that, because if you're feeling at that stage where it's like, I feel stuck, I need help, or whatever the dialogue is, you have to ask yourself, well, what can I do right now? But listen to the answer that comes. It's like, well, who can I speak to now? I can speak to Dave. Okay, cool. That's your intuition telling you what your first step is. And that may lead to something later on, or it may get you on the path to find that information. Because what we were saying before about like opening the book on the right page, you gotta remember this is, and we're going to start talking, like getting into metaphysics, which we're not going to do now, but this is all like the energy aspect of everything. Yeah. Have you ever like called up someone or sent someone a message and say, hey, how you doing? They're like, hey, I was just thinking of you.
Yep. It happens all the time.
Yeah. That's
and I like sorry, Nathan. I liked what you said. You know, when like the right time comes, but for a long time, I didn't understand that you've got to sit still for a minute, not hustle, but sit still for a minute and let your intuition come in. And I think that's something that is missing for a lot of people to understand, is you need that stillness to allow the answers to come, because you've always said this to me, the answers will come.
Yeah, they always do. If you allow yourself that time, you're right. Because if someone's hustling or grinding, it's like, and this is what we're saying, like beliefs dictate your actions. And so if you've got a belief that if you stop, you're going to fail, then when are you ever going to stop and find that time? And when are you going to start listening to what you really need, right? That's
Mm,
why beliefs really are under the surface of it all. It's like, I'm a failure, or if I don't do this now, or if I don't do my to-do list, it means that I'm not getting the things done which I need to get done, or it means I'm not going to make the money I want to make, or it means
mm,
that I'm not good, or whatever it is. But that's the action that happens as a result of the beliefs which are coming. And that's what we
mm,
say to, that's what I like to encourage most of the people I speak to do. It's like, the more you actually stop and allow yourself to think and allow yourself to feel and recognize what's going on in you, the easier things become. It's like more breaks actually means better work output, means better focus, means better energy, but you
yep,
have to allow yourself to do it. And if it's a struggle, this is the point. If it's a struggle, you have to put your hand up and say, I can't do that. I need help doing that. Right.
mm,
For whatever reason that is, because that's where the real help is. It's like, that's the moment right there. It's like, I need help doing it. I need help learning how to stop from it. I need help learning how to build a relationship with myself. I need help figuring it out, how to actually listen to my intuition. Right. And
mm,
that's the best solution you can find then. Like, if that's the struggle, then once you can solve that, the things, inverted commas again, the things in your life will work itself out. We were talking before about coaching in two different spheres. Like, you can do personal coaching or business coaching. Well, if you coach the business owner at a personal level and help them overcome their own fears and beliefs, then naturally their business is going to get better, right?
yes.
So the stuff works itself out once the person works themselves out.
Yeah, and that's so true, And anyone who's listening right now, if you go, oh, you're talking about this intuition thing, and you want to know, I'm sure Nathan will absolutely agree. Send him a message and say, hey, you were talking about that intuition thing. Tell me more about that. Or,
Yeah.
if you want to send me a message and ask about it. But, reach out to someone and say, I don't know if you've heard of any Jim Rohn stuff, Jim Rohn's
Oh yeah,
work.
of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I can't tell you how many people I ask that, and the answer is no, they've not heard of him. So I'm extremely excited that you have.
Oh
I've
yeah.
followed him for a long time. He was such a mentor of mine. And I remember him saying, he talks about, if you want to be a better parent, take a parent to lunch that you think is a really good parent and ask them how they do it. If
Mm.
someone has a really good relationship with their spouse or their children and you want that, ask them how they do it. So if you want to know how to increase your awareness, contact Nathan and say, hey, how do you do that? And
Yeah.
then, because just asking the question can open up the possibility of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's all it takes. It's just asking the question and being willing to step out and speak to someone
Mm,
about it. Because I'm always open to that. And the way I usually work, as you know, it's like, I always prefer to get on the phone to someone for 2 hours and really work with them. But just some general advice is always a good way. But like, at the very least, it's just listen to the question, listen to the answer that comes up once you ask yourself a question. And
mm.
it can be as simple as that. But once again, if people struggle with that, of course, I'm always open to helping them out as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I never even used to listen to my GPS because I thought I knew better, but to now, understand that my awareness just increases so rapidly when I just listen and really go with what my intuition is saying. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it always leads in the right
Oh, look, once
direction.
again, we have these conversations and I just feel so, I don't even know how to describe it, so fulfilled and so excited because I just think that you have so much to share. So I'm very grateful and thank you. Is there anything else that you would want the listeners to know?
Um, no, I think we've covered it all. I think the main thing, as it is with everyone, and this is, I don't know if it's my message, but it's something I came up with recently, because when I started to dig into my own why, this is what came up. But
Mm,
I like to help people realize how important they really are. And I think that's what most people need to do. So anyone who's listening, the main thing to remember is that just realization that you are important.
mm,
You are really important. You're really valuable, and you are totally worth seeking out the answers to the question you've got. And if you need help, just reach out to do it, because you are worth it, right?
yeah.
And this is not like is it Revlon that says that? You're worth it. So it's not, let's just put that aside, because that seems like a marketing piece of material, but it's genuine. Like, you really
Yeah,
are. And if you struggle with that, then that's the challenge right there, because you need to
yeah.
realize that yourself and be good with it as well.
Mm.
So that's probably the main thing I'd like everyone to start to understand, or at least start to think about.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning into another episode. And don't forget, we're going to have the third episode in this 5-part series coming next week. So till then, bye for now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you.